I woke up to the sound of Emma crying, her tiny fists waving in the air like she was trying to tell me something urgent. I rubbed my eyes, wishing I could just close them again and ignore the world for a few more minutes, but reality hit me as soon as I turned over. Her little blanket was tangled around her legs, and I realized the formula bottle I had bought yesterday was empty. Completely empty. My heart sank. I checked the cupboards again, hoping maybe I had missed one last can hidden behind the others, but there was nothing. Not a single bottle. My stomach twisted in panic. How could I have let this happen? I should have gone to the store yesterday, but I had been too tired, too exhausted. And now my baby's cries were cutting through the silence of our small apartment like a knife. I tried to calm her down. "Shh, baby, mommy's here," I whispered, stroking her tiny cheek. But Emma's cries only grew louder. I could feel the weight of her desperation pressing against me. She needed food, and I had nothing to give her. I felt tears sting my eyes. I hated feeling helpless. Every time I thought about how I had to provide everything for her, just the two of us, it became almost unbearable. I grabbed my phone, thinking maybe I could order something online, but the delivery wouldn't come until the next day. I couldn't wait that long. Emma needed to eat now. I paced around the room, my mind racing. The small amount of money I had saved was barely enough to cover rent, let alone formula. I felt like I was suffocating, like the walls of the apartment were closing in on me. I hugged Emma to my chest, feeling her little body tremble with hunger and frustration. "I'm sorry, baby," I whispered, my voice shaking. I had promised her a safe life, a life where she would never go hungry, and yet here we were. Alone, hungry, scared. The streets outside were dark and empty. I knew I had to go to the 24-hour store a few blocks away. My heart raced as I imagined every possible danger. People who might see a single mother walking alone at night with a baby and decide to take advantage. I had to be careful, I had to be smart. But the desperation to feed my daughter was stronger than the fear. I wrapped Emma in her warmest blanket, making sure she was bundled tightly against my chest. Every step I took outside felt heavier than the last. The cold night air bit at my skin, and the wind whipped around me as if trying to push me back inside, to make me give up. But I couldn't. I wouldn't. I had promised Emma that I would protect her, and promises were everything to me. As I walked, I passed the darkened houses of our neighborhood. Most of the lights were off, but a few flickered through windows. I imagined the families inside, the warmth and comfort that I wished I could give Emma. The loneliness of our little apartment felt magnified in that moment. People didn't notice us, didn't know our struggle. It was just me and Emma against the world. When I finally reached the 24-hour store, my legs felt like lead. I entered quickly, keeping Emma close. The fluorescent lights above made the store feel cold and harsh, and every noise seemed amplified. The formula aisle was empty on the shelves, except for a single can of Emma's favorite brand. My heart leapt, but as I reached for it, I realized I didn't have enough cash to pay for it. My hands shook. I could barely hold Emma with one arm while I tried to figure out what to do. Panic clawed at me. I knew I shouldn't, but desperation whispered in my ear. Maybe, just maybe, if I grabbed it quickly, no one would notice. My mind screamed at me not to, but my heart screamed louder. Emma needed this. She deserved this. I looked around nervously, making sure no one was watching. That's when I saw him. A man standing a few feet away, observing me with a calm, steady gaze. He looked ordinary, jeans, a jacket, but there was something in his eyes that made me freeze. I felt caught. My heart raced faster, and I realized I couldn't hide what I was thinking. I felt ashamed, exposed like a failure. He walked over slowly. "Hey," he said, his voice gentle but firm. "Are you okay?" I swallowed hard, my throat dry. My mind scrambled for an excuse, for a reason not to tell him the truth. But how could I lie? My baby was crying, my hands were shaking, and the truth was written all over my face. I don't have money," I stammered. "I don't have enough for the formula. My baby needs it." His expression softened. "Don't worry," he said. "Let's figure this out." I blinked, not believing my ears. Nobody ever said something like that to me. Nobody ever offered help without judging me first. My heart pounded with disbelief and relief. Could it really be this simple? Could someone really care? I looked down at Emma, sleeping a little now in my arms, exhausted from crying. Maybe, just maybe things were going to be okay. Maybe this stranger could help us. Maybe tonight wouldn't end in despair after all. I followed him cautiously, unsure if I could trust him completely, but desperate enough to take the risk. Every step I took with him was filled with fear, hope, and a strange feeling I couldn't name yet. This night I knew would change everything. I didn't know it then, but that simple act of walking into that store, of reaching for a single can of formula, would mark the beginning of a journey I never imagined. A journey that would test my strength, my courage, and my ability to fight for my daughter in ways I had never fought before. And as I held Emma close, feeling the warmth of her little body against mine, I made a silent promise. No matter what happened, I would do everything in my power to protect her. I would fight, I would struggle, and I would never give up. Because she was my world. She was everything. And tonight, as fear and hope collided in the aisles of that cold, lonely store, I realized that sometimes, the smallest moments could change the rest of your life. I followed him slowly, my arms wrapped tightly around Emma. Every step felt heavy, like my legs were filled with lead. I kept glancing at him, trying to figure out if he was really here to help, or if I had made a terrible mistake trusting a stranger. But his calm presence somehow made me take a deep breath. Maybe, just maybe, I wasn't completely alone tonight. He led me to a small corner of the store where the formula was kept. "This one?" he asked, pointing at the last can on the shelf. My heart leapt. It was the exact brand Emma liked, the one she would drink without fuss. I reached for it, but my hands were shaking so badly that I almost dropped it. I felt a lump in my throat, my chest tight with a mixture of fear and relief. I don't have enough money," I admitted quietly, my voice barely above a whisper. I avoided looking at him, ashamed. I hated feeling this helpless, hated that I was standing here asking for help. But Emma's soft whimpers reminded me that my pride meant nothing if she went hungry. He smiled gently. "Don't worry about that. You can take it. I'll pay for it." I froze, my mind struggling to process what he had just said. I can't let you," I whispered, shaking my head. "I have to. You're a mom," he interrupted softly. "I've been there. Sometimes, you just need someone to help." His words were simple, but they hit me harder than anything anyone had ever said. He understood. He didn't judge me. He wasn't angry or impatient. He simply wanted to help. Tears pricked my eyes and I hugged Emma tighter. I didn't even notice the other customers watching. It didn't matter. For the first time in days, I felt a spark of hope. We moved toward the counter, and he handed the can to the cashier while I held Emma. I kept thinking about all the nights I had cried myself to sleep, wondering how I would feed her, how I would survive. And now someone had stepped in. Just like that. It was almost too much to believe. As we walked out of the store, I noticed the cold wind biting at my cheeks. I pulled Emma closer to me, holding her like she was my entire world, because she was. The stranger walked beside me, keeping a careful distance, giving me space but also making sure I was safe. "I can take you to a place where single moms get help," he said casually. "Food, formula, advice. Even some support for the future." I glanced at him, unsure. I don't know. I don't want to bother anyone," I said, my voice trembling. I had always felt like I had to do everything myself. Asking for help felt impossible, like admitting defeat. "You're not a bother," he said firmly. "You're doing your best. That's all that matters." His words warmed me, but a small part of me still hesitated. Could I trust him? Was this really a safe place, or would I regret following him? My mind raced with doubts, but Emma squirmed in my arms, hungry and tired. I couldn't leave her alone. I couldn't let fear stop me from doing what was right for my baby. Finally, I nodded. "Okay, I'll go," I whispered, my voice barely audible. I didn't know if I was brave or desperate, but either way there was no turning back. As we walked toward his car, I tried to study his face. Michael. That was his name. He had kind eyes, a gentle expression, and a calmness that made me feel slightly safer. I wondered why someone like him would care about a stranger, about me, about Emma. People like him didn't usually exist in my world. The streets were dark and quiet. Every shadow seemed bigger. Every sound louder than it should have been. My grip on Emma tightened. My heart beat so fast I thought it might burst. I wanted to look confident, but inside, I was shaking with a fear I hadn't felt in years. What if something went wrong? What if this stranger turned out to be dangerous? What if I made the worst mistake of my life? But then I looked at Emma, her little eyes blinking sleepily, trusting me completely. She had no idea how desperate our situation had been, how close we had been to going hungry tonight. She just needed me to protect her, to be brave for her. And somehow that tiny trust gave me courage I didn't know I had. When we reached the car, Michael opened the door for me and helped me place Emma safely inside. I still felt tense, nervous, but I also felt a strange relief. Maybe this was the first step towards something better. Something safer. Something that could finally give my daughter a chance at a better life. As we drove through the quiet streets, I held Emma close, listening to her soft breathing. I didn't know who Michael really was or why he had chosen to help me, but I knew one thing. Tonight something had changed. And somehow I felt that my life and Emma's life was about to change too. I didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in what felt like forever, I dared to hope. We drove in silence for a few minutes. The hum of the engine was the only sound, except for Emma's quiet little whimpers as she tried to settle down in my arms. I kept glancing at Michael, trying to read him, trying to understand why he was helping us. There was no hint of judgment on his face, no impatience, just calm and a quiet determination that made me feel safe, in a way I hadn't felt in years. Finally he spoke. "You don't have to be afraid," he said gently. "I know it's hard, I've seen it before. You're not alone." I felt a lump form in my throat. No one had ever said that to me. Not my family, not my friends. I had been doing everything on my own for so long that I forgot what it felt like to have someone care without expecting anything in return. My eyes stung, but I blinked quickly, not wanting Emma to see me cry. I don't know what to say," I admitted softly. "Nobody's ever done this for me." "You don't have to say anything," he replied. "Just let me help. That's all that matters." We arrived at a small community center tucked between two buildings. The sign outside read "Helping Hands, Support for Single Parents." It wasn't flashy and it didn't feel like much, but there was a warmth in the lights spilling out onto the sidewalk. Somehow I knew this place could be different. I took a deep breath, holding Emma close, and stepped out of the car. Michael led us inside. The room smelled faintly of coffee and cleaning supplies, and soft chatter floated in the air. A woman behind the counter smiled at us, and for a moment, I felt like I could breathe again. The tension in my chest eased slightly, though the knot of fear and doubt was still there. "This is the place," Michael said quietly. "They can give you formula, food, and even advice for the future. You don't have to do this alone anymore." I nodded, barely trusting myself to speak. "Thank you," I whispered. It felt like such a small word, but it carried the weight of everything I had been holding inside for so long: fear, desperation, shame, hope. A volunteer came over and greeted us warmly. "Hello, Jessica. And you must be Emma. Don't worry, we've got you." I felt a tear roll down my cheek. Real help. Real kindness. I didn't have to hide anymore. Didn't have to pretend I could handle everything on my own. As they guided me through the process, helping me get formula, diapers, and some food for the week, I felt a strange mix of relief and disbelief. Could life really get better this easily? Could one stranger's kindness really open a door I thought was permanently closed? Michael stayed nearby but didn't interfere. He simply watched, offering a reassuring smile when I looked at him. I wondered silently why someone like him would care about people he didn't even know. It didn't matter. Right now his help was enough. Emma was quiet now, finally relaxed and safe in my arms. I fed her, feeling the warmth of her little body against mine. Every bite she took felt like a tiny victory, a promise that maybe I could keep her safe after all. For the first time in a long time, I allowed myself to hope. I let myself imagine a life where we weren't just surviving but living, where someone would be there to help when I couldn't do it all alone. And in that moment I realized something powerful. Asking for help didn't make me weak. It made me human. It made me a mother who would do whatever it took for her child. Michael's presence reminded me that kindness existed, even in a world that often seemed cold. That sometimes the smallest gestures could change everything. I hugged Emma tighter and whispered softly, "We're going to be okay. I promise." I didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in months, maybe even years, I felt like I could face it. Not alone, but with people who cared. And with that thought, a tiny spark of hope lit up my heart. brighter than I had felt in a very long time. After leaving the community center, I felt a strange mix of relief and fear. Relief because Emma now had food and formula in her tiny hands. Fear because I had no idea what would come next. Michael walked beside me silently, giving me space but also somehow making me feel safer than I had in months. I kept glancing at him, trying to read his face. Was he really just being kind? Or was there something else? We reached my car, and I carefully placed Emma in her car seat. She looked up at me with sleepy eyes and a little smile. I wanted to believe that everything would be okay, that maybe this night was the beginning of something better. Michael leaned against the car, his hands in his pockets, waiting. "You don't have to do this alone," he said softly. "There are people who can help you, who can guide you. You just have to let them." I swallowed hard. I wanted to believe him, but the voice of doubt was still loud in my head. I had been on my own for so long that asking for help felt impossible. But looking at Emma, I realized that I couldn't let fear control me anymore. She deserved more than just survival. She deserved hope. She deserved a chance at a better life. "Okay," I said finally, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'll try." Michael smiled gently. "That's all anyone can ask. Just try." The next few days were a blur. I visited the community center with Michael's guidance, and they helped me enroll in programs for single moms. I learned how to manage my limited money better, where to find free resources for Emma, and how to plan for emergencies. Every small victory felt huge. I felt like I was finally taking control, but I still struggled with the fear of falling behind, of not being enough. One afternoon, as I sat with Emma feeding her, I reflected on how much had changed in just a few days. A stranger's kindness had opened a door I didn't even know existed. I thought about all the nights I had cried myself to sleep, worrying about how I would survive, and now here I was learning to breathe again, learning that help could exist without judgment. There were still moments of doubt. Some nights when the apartment was quiet and Emma was asleep, I would think about how fragile everything still felt. What if the money ran out again? What if I made a mistake? But then I would look at Emma's peaceful face and remember that I wasn't completely alone anymore. I had someone to guide me, someone to remind me that I didn't have to do everything by myself. Michael didn't just give me advice or help with formula. He taught me something more important: trust. Trust in people, trust in the kindness of others, and most importantly, trust in myself. For so long I had felt powerless, like my decisions didn't matter. But now I realized that even small choices, asking for help, accepting support, trying again, could change the course of our lives. Every day I felt a little stronger. Every day I learned to balance fear and hope. I still worried, of course. I would always worry about Emma, but for the first time worry didn't paralyze me. It reminded me why I had to keep going, why I had to fight. And with Michael's help, I learned that I wasn't weak for asking for help. I was brave. I was a mother who refused to give up. And that realization changed something deep inside me. It wasn't just about surviving anymore. It was about living. About giving Emma the life she deserved. About finding hope in places I had never thought to look. And I knew that this was just the beginning. The next few weeks were not easy. Every day felt like a test, and some days felt impossible. I had Emma to care for, bills to pay, and the constant fear that one small mistake could undo everything. But somehow I managed. With Michael's guidance and the support from the community center, I began to see that life didn't have to be just about surviving. Some mornings I would wake up exhausted, with Emma crying beside me, and wonder how I could possibly do it all. But then I would remember the kindness Michael had shown me that night, and I would find a small spark of strength inside myself. It wasn't much, but it was enough to keep going. I learned how to budget my money better, how to find free formula when I ran low, and where to get extra help for Emma's needs. I even met a few other single moms at the center. Hearing their stories made me feel less alone, but it also reminded me that life could be cruel, that survival wasn't guaranteed. Every success felt fragile, like a candle flame in the wind, and every setback felt like a storm trying to blow it out. Some days the neighbors would look at me with judgmental eyes, whispering behind closed doors about the single mom struggling with her baby. It hurt more than I wanted to admit, but I learned to ignore it, to focus on Emma and on the small victories I could control. Each diaper I changed, each bottle I fed, Each small step forward felt like a battle I was winning, even if the world didn't notice. And then there were emergencies. One night, the formula I had saved ran out unexpectedly. Emma was hungry and I felt panic claw at my chest. I wanted to run to the store, but I had no money left. My heart raced and for a moment I froze, feeling utterly helpless. But then I remembered the lessons I had learned, the resources I had been given, and I reached out to the community center. They were ready for me. They had extra formula advice and even volunteers who checked in on us. That night I realized something important. I didn't have to fight every battle alone. I could ask for help. I could accept support. And doing so didn't make me weak. It made me smarter, stronger, more capable. Michael continued to check in, not because he wanted something but because he cared. Sometimes he would just sit and listen while I talked about the fears and frustrations I faced as a single mom. Other times he would guide me, gently pointing out solutions or helping me see opportunities one hadn't noticed. His presence reminded me that kindness existed, even in a world that often seemed cold and indifferent. Every day I felt myself growing stronger. Not perfect, not invincible, but stronger. My confidence as a mother grew, and with it my hope for the future. I still worried about Emma, still feared failure, but I learned to balance that fear with determination and courage. I was no longer just surviving, I was building a life for both of us. Looking back, I realized that it wasn't just Michael's help that had changed our lives. It was the combination of support, resources, and my willingness to accept them. It was me finally believing that I could do more than just survive. I could thrive. I could give Emma a life filled with love, security, and hope. And even when the nights felt long and the world seemed heavy, I reminded myself of one thing. We had come this far together and we would keep going. Every challenge was a lesson. Every struggle was a chance to grow. And every small victory was a reminder that we were stronger than we had ever known. It had been months since that desperate night when Emma cried in my arms and I didn't know how I would feed her. So much had changed since then. I had grown stronger, more confident, and I had learned that asking for help didn't make me weak. It made me human. The community center had become our second home. I knew the volunteers by name now, and they knew Emma too. They had become our support system, our safety net. Every small step forward, every moment of stability, reminded me that life could be better than mere survival. Michael still checked in from time to time, always quietly, always humbly. He never demanded anything in return. He just wanted to make sure we were okay. Sometimes I caught myself staring at him in disbelief. How could someone so ordinary, someone I had never known, change my life so profoundly? But I didn't question it anymore. I had learned to accept kindness, to trust, and to move forward with it. One afternoon, as Emma giggled while playing with her toys, I sat on the floor beside her, feeling a warmth in my chest I hadn't felt in years. I thought about that night, the panic, the fear, the hopelessness. And I thought about where we were now, the formula neatly stocked in the kitchen, the bills slowly getting under control, the support system we had built. I realized then that life wasn't perfect. I still had worries and I would always have challenges as a single mom. But now I faced them with hope instead of despair, with courage instead of fear. And most importantly, with the knowledge that kindness could appear when you least expected it, and that even one person's actions could change everything. I looked at Emma, her tiny hand reaching for mine, and smiled. "We made it, baby girl," I whispered. "We really made it." The journey wasn't over, of course. There would be more nights when I doubted myself, more days when I felt exhausted and overwhelmed. But I knew now that I didn't have to face them alone. I had learned to accept help, to seek support, and to trust in the good that existed in the world. And that made all the difference. Sometimes I would catch a glimpse of Michael in the distance, quietly watching, making sure we were okay. And I would smile, silently thanking him for stepping into our lives when we needed him the most. A stranger had become our guiding light, but I knew the true strength always came from within me. The determination to keep going, the courage to rise after every fall, and the love I had for Emma that refused to let anything break us. That night, as I tucked Emma into her bed and watched her drift off to sleep, I whispered a promise to her. No matter what happens, I'll always protect you. I'll always fight for you. And together we'll make it through everything. And for the first time in a long time, I believed it. Truly believed it. Because we had survived the darkness, we had embraced hope, and we had discovered that even in our hardest moments, Life could surprise us with kindness, courage, and a chance for a new beginning.